Okay, so thank you for joining our webinar on delicious homemade food gifts for the holidays. I'd like to introduce you to our speaker tonight, Lisa Marie Smith. Lisa Marie is a youth librarian. She's been with the Vernon Area Library for, I believe, 32 years. She is also an avid baker, and she regularly delights her coworkers, her family, and friends with her wonderful treats. One of the hardest parts about being home this holiday season is not having Lisa's samples. So like, you know, when you take a break from your work, because usually she really treats her coworkers to all her creations. So,
they really double as my research and development department. They just don't realize it.
So we all love that. So while Lisa Marie is talking, I'm going to turn off my camera and my microphone, but I still will be available by the chat. Okay, welcome.
I'm going to go ahead and X out the poll on my screen here. So if you excuse me for 1 second, because it has not gone away on my screen. But okay, well, we'll get started. I'm excited.
Okay. Oh, so Lisa, how do you want to start?
Let's go ahead. I can tell you a little bit about how I got into baking and what I don't know if you want to say specialties, but what I do regularly as far as baking and food gifts and things like that. I am a very proud 3-time finalist in the Chicago Tribune Holiday Cookie Contest. I made finals again this year with my Macadamia shortbread cookies, so I was thrilled to see that shortbread was up there in the top 3. But I've been baking for as long as I've been able to stand. With my grandmother, with my mom, actually my grandmother and my Polish grandmother who lived with us. But I come from a family of bakers on my mom's side, so baking just seems natural to me. I've been fascinating. I would like to, in another lifetime, be a chocolater, and work with chocolates. And this whole library thing doesn't work out for me. I'd like to go to pastry school. After 32 years, you know, it could be a second career, who knows? But yeah, I'm not going anywhere quickly. You know, I'm at the library. But I do chocolate, I do cookies, I do some pastry, I've started decorating cakes and things like that. All sorts of different things. I mold chocolate, and where I get the most pleasure is probably creating gifts and creating new cookie recipes. So everything, I will make other people's recipes for sure, but I like to take inspiration from them and create my own. So,
wait. So do you want me to start with the video for your first?
We're gonna start with a video, since I can't bring you all into my kitchen because it's just not possible being in 2 places at once. I'm set up in the living room, but I've recorded a video on making Palmiers. Now, Palmiers are French pastries. They look like hearts. They're made with puff pastry, but I'm going to teach you how to do it at home with just some simple ingredients, and people will swear that it came from a very expensive French bakery. So went ahead and recorded this so you could see the whole process. So we'll go ahead and have Roz play that video for you. Hi, I'm going to teach you how to make an easy palmier. You don't need to go to a French pastry to get these little pastries. You can make them yourselves with some simple ingredients that you find at your grocery store. I'm going to start with some refrigerated puff pastry. And I have got 3/4 cup of sugar with 1/4 teaspoon of salt in each of these 2 containers. So one of these puff pastries actually is a heart-shaped pastry that's sugar-coated, that is flaky and delicious and would make a lovely gift. So we're gonna see how you can do these at home, making approximately 18 or 19 from these simple ingredients. So we're gonna start by pouring our 3/4 cup of sugar mixed with 1¼ teaspoon of salt, and I'm spreading it over my cutting board, and I actually have a silicone pad cutting surface over it just so I can try to keep the sugar together and it's not spread across my table. Taking my puff pastry out. Now, if you've ever seen one of these puff pastries, they actually come on a sheet of parchment. They're wrapped up and you can cut little pieces off of them. I actually use it quite often to do kind of like a cheater pot pie where I just put different vegetables and meat in a pan and do a piece of this on the top. Or you can cut it and make little pastries out of it. I'm taking it off of the parchment that it comes attached to. And I'm going to spread this big rectangle over my board. Now, you're going to stretch it out a little bit because we want it to be even when we roll things up. Now I've got sugar and a little bit of salt on the bottom because the salt always accentuates the sweetness and makes it stand out in your mouth. I'm going to go ahead and take the other 3/4 cup of sugar and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and I'm sprinkling it over the top. Now, it's evenly divided between the top and the bottom. I'm going to just spread it out with my hands. Now, the puff pastry, you can make your own if you have lots of time, but if you don't, even during a pandemic, I would suggest buying this refrigerated. You can get it Jewel at the Walmart, any place like that. Now, I've got my rolling pin and I'm going to roll the puff pastry out so I can make sure that the salt adheres to both sides of the puff pastry. So just give it a couple of squeezes, try to make it even. You're going to bring it forward toward you, you're going to bring it away from you, you're going to bring it across both ways, and every time you press down on the puff pastry, you're just pushing that sugar into that pastry, embedding it there. You're going to have some things on the side, that's okay. If you want to go ahead and sprinkle it on some more, that's always a good idea, like to flip it over there. Kind of keep it all together. But now the trick when you're making these little guys is I'd like to take a little zoom in here by rolling it out. Not only did it stick just because it's a little bit of a sticky surface, but you're actually squeezing it in to the pastry. I'm going to fold this piece in half, making sure that I have the same amount on the top and the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep folding it, and we're going to make those lovely pastry layers without doing all the work. Folding it again, and you're going to fold it one more time like a book. Think of it as a book. You're opening a book. Now, you can press down to make sure you get more sugar in there. I like to sprinkle over the top. We can go ahead and move the whole kit and caboodle this way, and we're going to cut it into equal segments that are approximately 1/2 inch thick. So I've got any knife will work. I just happen to grab this one. I'm going to take the edge off just to make sure it's flat on both sides. You cut down that way. And last time I made these, I actually did the little bits and pieces of dough, and those are just as delicious. To make sure that you get even slices, go ahead and cut the piece in half so you can work from that way. Go ahead and once you have it in half that way, go ahead and just make 1/2 inch cuts. If you'd really like to, you can bring out a ruler, or you can approximate, which is what I'm doing. I found out that I used a ruler my first time making it just to make sure that everything was even, and it was so simple, I didn't really even need a ruler. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're going to have the same amount of on the other side. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I'm one big fat one, 9, and a little bit extra. Don't worry, nobody's going to measure to see if everything is exactly the same. But you'll see each of these little fellows now look like a heart. What I have found is the secret to making these is to try to keep them bunched up when you put them on your pan. I have got my cookie sheet here with parchment on it, and I would definitely recommend using parchment because this sugar, oh my goodness, it is going to brown and bubble and look just delicious when it's all done. But it's very, very, very sticky. So I'm going to go ahead and take my little hearts and keep them like that as I put them all on the pan. And put them here and here. Now, you notice you've got a lot of sugar left over. Don't worry, that's not going to go to waste. You've got 2, 4, 6, 8. One more here. 9, 10. So, you want a little bit of room between these because, like I said, it's not called puff pastry just for the heck of it. These babies are going to puff. Now, this, you're going to keep like this, and when they puff, they're going to puff out into a heart shape, which makes it a very nice gift to give to other people. Let you know that you're thinking of them with love. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my pieces here. Now you're going to lose some sugar. Don't panic because it's all going to become some of the sticky goodness when you flip these over. Okay. I'm going to put all these guys, try to keep them together. You'll see it's not really sticky. They're wanting to come apart as you lift them and put them on the sheet, but you can keep them together that way. Go ahead and stick that in the center. Give everybody enough room. I'm going to go ahead and take my little scraps. Put those things on here as well because why waste good, delicious dough? Now you'll notice I've got lots and lots of sugar left over that didn't get absorbed. That's okay. What I'm going to do is sprinkle some of that sugar on each of the Palmiers, and that sugar is going to help caramelize each of the pastries, giving it that beautiful golden brown color and crispness that you've seen in the very expensive patisseries around the country, around France, if you've ever gone to Europe. So once we are done here, all we need to do is put them in the oven at 450 degrees. I have found that the puff pastry actually gives you a guide. This says that you're supposed to, it suggests that you bake the puff pastry anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. And they suggest 425. I find that a little bit higher is better for that caramelization. So 15 to 20 minutes. We're going to go ahead and start with 12 to 13 minutes on one side. Then we'll go take a peek. You'll see that the sugar has turned into a beautiful golden brown. And then we're going to flip them over halfway, or flip them over to the other side, and let the caramelization occur on the opposite side too. We'll go ahead and take everything to the oven now. Our Pommiers are just about ready to be flipped. I'm going to open up the oven. I've got both trays in there, and halfway through I've actually flipped in, spun the trays. That's what I do for all of my cookies. Our Pommiers are ready to come out now. They look a little blonde on one side, but don't worry. We're going to flip these around and they're going to caramelize. They will go ahead and keep baking, but they might be a little tough to get off the rack. Don't worry, it's all that sugary goodness. Just hold down your parchment and take one at a time and flip them. Don't panic. Our smaller piece is getting a little bit more golden than the rest. We're going to go ahead and do this for all of these. Cook them for another 2 to 3 minutes. Keep an eye on them. When they are just starting to turn a little brown, go ahead and take them out of the oven. And we're going to go ahead and cool them on a rack once they're done, so that way they can go ahead and firm up and that beautiful sugar will crystallize and become a lovely casing for your pastry inside.
Okay. Lisa. Lisa.
Yeah, I am here. I just have to come back around the table again. I did see a question.
I can answer the question. I can answer that. That's about registration. And there's another question in the Q&A. Someone would like to know, could you use colored sugar to sprinkle on top?
I am certain you could, but when the sugar caramelizes, it actually turns brown. So when white sugar caramelizes, it turns that nice golden brown. If you start with a colored sugar, I'm not exactly positive what shade you're going to get. If it's going to turn gray, if it'll turn darker brown. The coloring shouldn't have any effect on the caramelization process, but I'm not certain about the color that will result. So
then we have another question. Someone would like to know, can you add cinnamon?
I was thinking about this too. Yes, you can. And I would experiment, because as you're rolling it, you're going to get cinnamon on the outside as well as the inside. Now, I've not tried it with cinnamon, but I thought about it as I was making these actually for the video. But cinnamon has a different burn point. So I'm not certain if it would get a little burnt tasting with the sugar. I'm not sure how the two would react together, but it is definitely worth a try. Puff pastry is very inexpensive. Yes, you can, if you want to be on the Great British Baking Show and make your own puff pastry, by all means, go ahead. But for $2.99 on sale for a sheet of puff pastry, it is very reasonable to try and experiment with things. I tend to use puff pastry to make, I call it a pot pie, but it's not really a pot pie. It's actually technically in something in fruit, where I'll take a pie dish and I use my leftover turkey from Thanksgiving. I did leftover turkey, bits of that, and mixed with, I did fresh carrots, onions, and celery, and just sauteed that in a pan, mixed in my turkey, and I used cream of chicken soup and the leftover gravy from the turkey, mixed it together, warmed it up, and I put puff pastry over the top of it and just heated it in a pie dish in the oven. And
So we have a
it's
couple questions about, oh, I'm sorry. We have a couple questions about the cookies. Someone would like to know, how do we cool them down? Would you move them onto a cooling rack? This is back to the Pommiers.
Yes, Palmiers, definitely move them onto a cooling rack, because that sugar, when it cools, is like glue. So as I suggest, and in the directions you'll get later on that says use a metal spatula. It's the only way you're going to slide it off of that cookie sheet, because how sticky that sugar does get when it gets to that hot surface. You'll have to clean off your cooling racks as well, but it's nothing like the tray. Parchment, you can just fold up and toss it. But yeah, you have to be careful, because I actually had to soak my metal spatula to get the sugar off of it, because that hot sugar cools and it becomes a solid rock. It really does. But definitely cooling racks on the way to go. Now I actually have some Pommiers here. I recommend putting them together. They make a lovely gift. You can actually, out of that one piece of puff pastry, you can get 18. This is a package of 6. This is a standard cookie gift bag that you can get at Michael's or Joann's, anything like that. They have plain ones all the time. They've got the seasonal ones. This one just happens to say baked with love. So, but I recommend putting them together, because once you taste this, it's amazing what sugar, how wonderful sugar tastes. It tastes like $1 million. It really does. It's delicious. People aren't going to want just one. You're going to have to package them together. So I would suggest either packaging them that way, and you could ship these. They're actually quite sturdy, you would think, but they're almost encapsulated in the sugar. And then, or if you wanted to go, I'm a big proponent of going to like Goodwill, Salvation Army. I hit estate sales, all sorts of things. You know, you can pick up a lovely dish for $1 or $2 over at the Goodwill. You wash it up, and you can, you know, throw the dishwasher if you want. Some of the more decorative ones, like this one is gold leaf, you know, cost me $2 at the Goodwill. And I mean, it makes a lovely gift. And when that person receives that, yes, those Palmiers will be gone in no time flat, but they'll always remember you when you give them a gift like this. Absolutely. So now that we did our Palmiers, I wanted to share a variety of other things. I'm going to try to cram as much as I can in the time that we have together. And one of the things that I personally have trouble with are gifts for my nephews. Kids, high schoolers. I've got a freshman and a senior in high school nephew. College age kids. After they're out of that stage where, they're done with toys, you don't know what to get them for clothes, you don't want to give them just a gift card. What do? They want to unwrap something. Well, I had some suggestions for teens and college age kids that would be good not only for holidays, but for birthdays. And even if you wanted to send dorm care packages down to university when they're studying. So let me go ahead and move my Pommiers over here. And I'll start with just a couple of ideas, simple things. One of the things that I love doing most around the holidays is going out to, like I said, the secondhand stores, the resale shops, consignment shops, and looking for something that strikes my fancy. I try to think of who I have to buy for, or who I want to gift for, what the occasion is, and maybe something that they could use, or something that would be special to them. What do you do with a 13-year-old or a 15-year-old boy? I don't know. So one thing I would suggest is, this is a surprise jar. This is a regular mason jar that I filled with candy. You could certainly find out what their favorite candy is. This one I happen to do is with Holiday Kisses. The jelly beans work well, Reese's Pieces work well. And yes, who doesn't love getting candy? You can decorate it nicely this way. But the surprise is when you open it up, it isn't just candy. It has a tube inside the center of the jar. And you take a tube, either a toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube, cut it to fit. Any jar will work. I happen to use a mason jar just because they're convenient and you can reuse them for so many things. Cover that tube with some sort of a decorative paper. I happen to have a leftover piece of scrap paper from birthday presents in my wrapping bin, and I'm sure I'm not the only one here. I've got all these little odds and ends waiting for the perfect size package because I don't want to throw that last 7 inches from the wrap roll away. So I've had this. I went ahead, covered it up, just cut it to fit, and I put it in here. Inside of this tube, you can put a gift card. You can put, here I've got a Barnes & Noble gift card. You can put money, you can put gift cards, anything small you can do. Jewelry in here as well. And you can see how much is actually left in this jar that they're going to enjoy as far as candy. But it's a clever way, instead of just handing somebody an envelope, which is, woohoo, whippy. It's something you can open, something you can wrap, something you can personalize. So that's an idea, a surprise jar. And I just happened to take the lid that came with it. I had a piece of material left over. I cut it into a square. I happen to have pinking shears. Just trim the edges so it didn't unravel. And you are all decorated. All you have to do is put a gift tag on it and they'll have 2 presents in one. It's a great idea for teens. And I hope my nephews aren't watching, but Jake, you're getting this. So that's his present. So another idea, simple, especially for kids who are at college, would be a Goldfish snack bowl. Now, this is a Goldfish bowl that I picked up for 50 cents. And I went ahead, brought it home, threw it in the dishwasher, made sure it was good and clean. And I put some Chex Mix in with Goldfish crackers. I made my own custom mix. You can choose sweet, you can choose savory, you can do whatever you want. There's a holiday recipe called Puppy Chow that comes around where you take Chex Mix and actually put sweetener on it. It would be great for that. But you can wrap it up just with a simple piece of material. I chose blue to go along with the fish theme. And they'll get a snack, tie a little ribbon around it, a little raffia. And these jars and containers can be used over and over again. It would be great to put keys in. It would be great to put change in if they want to, empty their pockets and things like that. Can be reused over and over again. And it's something for that college age kid or that high school age kid that will just sit and play on their Nintendo and just snack away. So one other thing that I wanted to, there he is hot chocolate mix. Now, yes, you can go and buy hot chocolate mix. And I've done this before where I've taken a plastic tube. You get this is a 12-inch plastic cone. This is actually from my decorating bags. So I filled it with hot chocolate mix. But have you ever looked to see what's all in a hot chocolate mix? There are things that we probably will never know exactly what all those ingredients are. But I decided to make my own. And to make your own is very, very simple. You take equal parts powdered sugar, which is actually sugar and cornstarch, and you take equal parts of powdered sugar and equal parts of powdered or non-fat dry milk, and 1/2 of that amount. So it's 1 to 1/2. So 1 cup of powdered sugar, 1 cup of powdered milk, and 1/2 cup of cocoa. Now I like to use the Girodelli Dutch processed dark cocoa for a richer taste. You could use Hershey's cocoa, you can use whatever your palate, enjoys. But I put this in a decorating bag and I put marshmallows on it. You can give this in a mug, you can give this in a hot chocolate cup, all sorts of things. I am not kidding. I was at Walmart earlier today, $2.79 for this exact thing. Now this is 1 serving of cocoa, 1/2 cup out of that mix that I gave, the 1 part milk, 1 part powdered sugar, to 1/2 cup of the cocoa. Half a cup of that mixture is exactly 1 serving. So that formula, 1, 1, and 1/2, that makes 5 portions of hot cocoa. So you can mix it with water, or if you really like milk, you can mix this with milk, but it already does have milk in it. It's a great thing to, if you've got office parties, if you've got babysitters that you need to gift things to, this is actually really nice. So another person that's often hard to gift is dads, grillers, grilling accessories and different tongs, mitts, all sorts of things. Very popular with the grillers, but there's no reason that you cannot make your own spice rub to go along with something like that. It's actually a very nice, simple recipe. It's a nice savory rub that'll go over with many different things. And you'll get the recipe. This is 1/4 cup dry thyme leaves, 1/4 cup dried basil, 1/4 cup rosemary, 1 1/4 tablespoons salt, 1 1/4 tablespoons of ground pepper, and 1 tablespoon of ground red pepper. Now, if you don't like any of those ingredients, don't use them. That's what I would suggest. These recipes are a basis for something to start with. Go ahead and mix and match to your own taste. If someone is allergic to basil, by all means, leave it out. You don't have to use it. But all of that together makes 3/4 of a cup. And this is exactly what's in here. It's 3/4 of a cup. This little jar I went ahead and got from Michael's, and it's got the rubber seal on it. This actually would ship very well. So if you have, we're going to be separated so much more of this year and into the next year because of the pandemic. This is something that will ship well. So this you can even put, if you didn't want to include the glass jar, you could put this in a Ziploc bag and mail this as well. Combine it.
We have a question from somebody about that.
Yes.
We'd like to know, when you say red pepper, do you mean red pepper flakes?
No, ground red pepper. I'm sorry, ground red pepper.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. And if I'm not clear on something, please ask. But it's something it's easily combined, but also many of these things can be shipped because we're going to be doing that so much more this year than we've done in the past. So, but one thing I wanted to go ahead and show you, the next thing is infused sugars. Now, as a baker, I am excited about infused sugars. Infused sugars is just pairing an ingredient with the sugar, and I actually made lemon infused sugar a couple of days ago. And we're gonna go ahead and make sure I had everything I need. We're gonna make orange infused sugar right now. I actually have 1.5 cups of regular granulated sugar, and I have got 1 orange. Now, you're gonna use the orange zest. The zest is the outside part of the orange peel. Inside, the white part, the pith, that's bitter. So we're going to try to get as little of this as possible. You could use a lemon, you could use a citrus zester and do that and get little strips around here. You could use a microplaner and sand off little bits and pieces. Or you could use a potato peeler. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and I've got my mixer right here. I'm going to open up and I'm going to pour my sugar in my mixer, 1.5 cups. I'm going to include my lemon zest, or my orange zest rather. Not the whole orange, but let me grab a paper towel. But an easy way to do this is to take a serrated potato peeler or vegetable peeler. And serrated because it's much easier to grab in and you're less likely to skim off the surface. Make sure you hold the item that you are peeling on the bottom. Funny story. When I was 4 years old, I didn't want to bother my mom. I didn't want to bother my bushel. I wanted a peeled apple. And I thought, I know how they do that. They get a knife, they peel the apple, and I'll go ahead and tell you the story as I do this. They peel the apple with a knife, and then they give me apple slices. But being a good girl, I knew I could not use a knife. It was forbidden. I couldn't do it. It was sharp. I could hurt myself. But no one ever said I couldn't use a potato peeler. So I reasoned I can use a potato peeler to take the skin off of an apple. Jump to the ending. Didn't work. Took the skin off of my finger, not the apple. So ever since then, I'm very cautious with potato peelers. So you can see I'm taking small little pieces of this orange. And they're only maybe a little bit bigger than a dime or a quarter. You don't have to get one whole big strip, but by doing this, you're getting a bunch of small things. We're making sure we get most of the zest. You are gonna find by the time we are done, this orange will resemble Space Shuttle Earth at Epcot because of all the little segments that we've taken off of it. So I'll finish that. And you can see the potato peeler or vegetable peeler really does a good job. It has very little of that pith on the skin and it's very much intact. You take the whole kit and caboodle and you put all of the orange zest in your mixer. You can use a blender, you can use a food processor. This is my small food processor here. And get the top on, put this to the side. Now comes the loud part. I have it on chop. I've got 2 settings on mine, chop and then puree. So I'm going to go ahead and chop it up to begin with. And I will let you take a look. You'll be able to see here that, there we go. You're going to pulse it and chop that zest up. After you see that zest moving throughout, not just on the top, it's going to be circulating throughout the rest of the sugar. I like to put it to puree and then get it even smaller. You want small pieces of zest. You don't want large pieces of zest because actually you're going to have to keep this refrigerated because of the moisture here, but it will keep in the refrigerator in a sealed container. Take this off and take this out. I have got a spoon right here to show you that it smells wonderful. And this is something, I'll show you, go ahead. It's got, I'm coming around so you can see my zest. So you could see the small pieces of zest in here. It's chopped up very thoroughly. The orange color has actually lends itself to the rest of the sugar too. Now this can be done with any citrus. I did it with orange here. I've made lemon before. This makes a lovely gift for someone who enjoys tea, not necessarily just hot tea, but iced tea as well. And for your friends who are bakers, or if you are a baker, let me tell you, they make a fabulous way to infuse that flavor into your baked goods. Talked about sugar cookies being the #1 popular cookie in our poll. But have you ever made an orange sugar cookie or a lemon sugar cookie? All you would have to do is take this infused sugar and use that in your cookie mix. That's all it would take. You wouldn't need to necessarily add additional extract. You could if you'd like to, but it doesn't matter. It would impart enough flavor. Now,
Lisa,
this
we
is
have a question about the sugar. Someone would
Yes.
like to know, how long can the infused sugar stay in the fridge?
Oh, the oils in the citrus will start dissipating as soon as you crush it up. You can use it, I would say, at least for a couple of weeks, as long as you're in the refrigerator in a sealed container. Now, unfortunately, this is going to be one of those things that's going to be more of a local gift and something that you mail, unless you mail priority, but you can always use it in baked goods. This is a sugar cookie that I made. Actually, I made an orange sugar cookie, and the zest is visible here in the cookie itself. I just took this cookie, cut it into a rectangle when I was rolling it out, and I dipped it in chocolate, which we're going to do next, and I made a lovely, it's almost like a black and white, very similar to a black and white cookie in New York, but this is orange and dark chocolate, a wonderful combination. But it's a lovely gift that you can make for your friends who are tea drinkers. Like I said, you could always pair it with, like I did, sugar in a small container here, and get a cup and a saucer. These things are, you can find them at estate sales. Go to the dollar store. The dollar store, I like to call it the librarian's best friend, because we get the most for our money from, we want to do the best thing we can with our patrons' money. So our tax dollars. So we actually are, buy wisely. But this would be a nice gift for a tea-loving friend of yours.
Lisa, we have another question.
Yes.
Someone would like to know, if you want to make vanilla infused sugar, would you add vanilla extract or vanilla bean?
You would use vanilla bean to make vanilla sugar. And
Okay.
vanilla sugar, actually, you can actually just take the vanilla bean, scrape out the inside of the vanilla bean, and leave the sugar with the vanilla bean just mixed in, and it will infuse itself over time. But here's my lemon sugar. We made our orange sugar here. This is cinnamon sugar. There's no secret formula to cinnamon sugar. It's sugar and cinnamon. Yes, you can buy it over at the store already pre-made, but you can make it yourself. There's no secret formula. I actually picked this adorable little setup. It's a creamer and a sugar with some raccoons on it. I thought it was very cute, that I'm planning on giving to a coworker for the holidays. And I'm going to go ahead and give her a couple of infused sugars to go with it. But something like that, just that touch, that personal touch, especially after the year that we've had, so many people are craving contact. These homemade items that you can share with others, well, that's the way that you can bring your loved ones even more closer. So
we have another question, and someone would
yes.
like to know, have you ever used infused sugar when making palmiers?
Oh, I have not, but that is a lovely idea. The only thing I would be afraid of is, again, the burning. You would have to experiment with that because you're using such a high temperature with the puff pastry at 450. And when you bake a sugar cookie, I'll give you a hint. When you bake a sugar cookie using lemon or using orange, you have to make sure you don't over bake the cookie, because the butter will brown in the cookie, and that brown butter taste will overcome your citrus flavor. So really, you have to be careful. So it's definitely worth experimenting. I've not used it, but that's a great idea. But infused sugars are something that is easy to do. Now, there is such a thing called infused salt as well, and I didn't have time to prepare it for you. There are recipes online to infuse salt with the citrus zest as well. They all involve drying in the oven because the salt isn't kept in the refrigerator like sugar can. Salt needs to be shelf stable. So you actually can pre-dry your zest after you've created it, not necessarily the strips, but the zest from a microplaner before you infuse it in with the salt. But that's also another way you could do that. You can do that with your herb rub, and then you've got two gifts for your griller. But now, I don't know if you've noticed that I actually turned on my melting pot. I'm going to go ahead and teach you how to make lemon candy. And I noticed I was on a citrus theme. I think that's just because citrus is so prevalent right now in the things that we're doing. The lemon candy that I'm going to make involves taking a Girodelli. I like to use a Girodelli. You can use any melting disc. Wilton has got a chocolate disc. You can use that. But I find personally the Girodelli tastes the best to my palate. So you can use a double boiler, or you can use a melting pot. Now I have to tell you, I wasn't sure about a melting pot. I am a believer. I do not work for Wilton. I am not getting a kickback from Wilton. But I'm in love with my melting pot because I use it not only making chocolate items, candies, but you can see that I infused my cookie and I dipped it into the chocolate. Makes it a little bit more special. I actually happen to have some of my nearly award-winning cookies from the contest. These are I call them my Mary Macs. These are my macadamia shortbread cookies. But you can see I just took white and dark chocolate that I melted in my melting pot and drizzled it over. It elevates the cookie. It really does. So what you do is you warm your melting pot up, or your double boiler, get that water boiling. And with a melting pot, you have this turned on for 5 minutes to preheat it. Then you pour your melts in here. Now, I know somebody is thinking out there, can I use chocolate chips? Chocolate chips are not designed to melt the same way these chocolate discs are. As a matter of fact, there is something added to chocolate chips that inhibits their melting. That's why your chocolate chip cookie can look like a chocolate chip cookie, and it doesn't look like a chocolate cookie when it comes out of the oven.
Lisa, we have one question from
Yes.
someone. They'd like to know, where can I purchase the Girodelli Dutch processed cocoa? She's not finding it on her online supermarket or Target.
Oh, okay. Actually, Target sometimes carries it. Walmart carries it reliably. Woodman's carries it, and actually Woodman's has got all their Girodellis cheap for the holidays. They call them holiday pricing. And Joann's carries it. Joann's, you pay list price at Joann's. If you buy it at Joann's, make sure you get the 40% off coupon, because each bag would be $5.36 at the Joann's. Unless you have the 40% off coupon, then it's much more reasonable. Now, I just picked up some extra Girodelli melting wafers over at the Woodman's, and I noticed that they happen to have some of their baking things cheaper for the holidays. I poured the entire bag, 10 ounces, in here. And what we're going to do is I'm stirring this while it's on high. There's two settings. There's warm and then there's high. High is only used when you're warming up the pot or you're melting some chocolate. So as I am stirring, I'll pick up, comes with a lovely silicone liner you can pick up, and it's starting to melt. The thing with chocolate and chocolate wafers is the way that it's chemically constructed. Once one piece starts to melt, it gets on another piece, and it's the pieces of chocolate touching and combining that actually melts, not so much the heat. So they need each other to melt. So I'm melting all of these 10 ounces of chocolate. What I'm going to be doing is, after I melt this 10 ounces of chocolate, I am going to be adding 6 ounces of lemon hard candy. I just went to Lemon Drops. This is actually from Blaine's Farm and Fleet, and it was $1.69 for the whole bag. And there are 16 ounces. You can use any kind of lemon drop as long as it is not sugar-free. The sugar-free will leave a bitter taste. So you're having chocolate, you might as well go full flavor and do the lemon drops in doing it that way.
Lisa,
Now,
we have another question from someone who would like to know, can I use my mini crock pot as a melting pot?
Actually, I do not believe you can, because it's not designed for it. I think it's because the I'm not sure what temperature the crock pot works at. But when I melted my chocolate, and I melted it earlier today, I actually did they call it a switch out. I'm making this with you now, and I actually have a batch that I made earlier today. I used my temperature probe, and I figured out how hot the chocolate is, because I was curious, how hot does it get in here? The chocolate only gets 110 degrees. And I would imagine a crock pot is going to be much higher than that. So I know I have seen people make wassail in it and mulled wines and things like that to keep it warm. But I am not certain, but I would think you probably will not be able to use it. But I am not an authority, so I don't want to say definitely. But I would definitely do some research before you do that. But so now this is melting, and there actually is a product. If you're working with chocolate, if you're ever working with chocolate, don't be afraid. It's so easy to work with chocolate. You can get any of the plastic molds. You've probably seen them at Joann's. All you do is melt this, pour a little in, it stays. There is a way to temper chocolate. What we're using is a melting wafer. This isn't true official chocolate like you would see like the on any of the Food Network shows and the candy artists and things like that. This is, think of it as the home model. Wilton has got any number of colors to to melt and make different things. But you can dip pretzels in it. You can roll pretzels in M&Ms. You can roll pretzels in nuts. That makes a lovely thing. Dip Oreo cookies and decorate that. One thing that I'm gonna run out of time. I know that. I was going to show you is, and you'll be getting the recipe for mendiants. Mendiants are lovely little French chocolates, and I've got some already made here. And all they are, the mendiants originally came from France, and they came in 4 flavors. They had dark chocolate, and then they had different little toppings in them. They had, and I have it on the sheet so I don't forget, they had raisins, almonds, dried figs, and hazelnuts. And they came originally with that because they actually stood for the 4 monastic orders in France. Who knew? I am not French, I am learning this. But they make them around Christmas. You take a piece of parchment paper and I'm gonna show you this because I would show you how to do this. Melt your chocolate. I take parchment and I've done 1.5 inch circles on the back of my parchment. Flipped it over so you can see right through it. And one of the things that you can do is just take this chocolate with a tablespoon and pour little 1.5 inch circles. That's what the circle is for, to act as a guide. And you can take and decorate it with any number of things. I've got peppermint candies, all those colored jimmies that you've seen in the baking aisle. Now you've got a use for them. You can do that. You can use nuts, raisins, dried cranberries. It doesn't have to be figs like they did originally in France. It can be anything like that. But that also makes it a lovely little gift. These delightful, small, very petite chocolates that you can wrap up together in a package or give in a nice bowl. So now I've got 6 ounces, we'll finish with this. I've got 6 ounces of crushed up lemon drops. Let me warn you, I've learned a lesson. Don't use your rolling pin to crush up the lemon drops. It's what I do with my nuts sometimes. Lemon drops much, much harder than a nut. It will dent your rolling pin. I'm serious. It'll crush your rolling pin. I actually went, and my lemon drops are hard. I put them in a Ziploc bag, covered them in a dish towel, and crushed them with a hammer into small pieces. I'm going to take just your lemon drops, pieces of candy, and throw the whole kit and caboodle into the melted chocolate. We're going to mix this all together, and I'll lift this up to show you. We are mixing everything so it's all covered. I'm going to turn my pot down to medium just because everything is melted now. And you're going to take a tray. Any tray will work, but your chocolate is going to conform to the shape of your tray. If you want thin chocolate, use a bigger tray. I have a small lid from a Christmas cookie container that I got, actually the Honolulu Cookie Company. And I kept the lovely little box. Here it is. I thought, you know what? That's the perfect size. I lined it with parchment. I'm going to take this and pour this out, the whole thing onto the parchment. So the chocolate is not going to take any of the imprints from the bottom. It's going to stay on the parchment. And I'm going to take this, spread it out here, and I'm going to put this in my refrigerator for 10 minutes. That's all it's going to take. This is going to firm up, and after 10 minutes, it is going to come out looking like this. One big piece of chocolate. Now, who doesn't love one big piece of chocolate? But might not be the most appropriate thing to gift, one giant lump of chocolate. What you could do is break it up into, there you go, bite-sized pieces. And in here, you can see the pieces of the lemon candy that's mixed in. Some of the candy actually pulverized into small things. That'll be flavor that's infused through the rest of the chocolate. So you're going to go ahead and break it up into your bite-sized pieces. And each of these will have lovely little beautiful shards of lemon drop in there that provides a nice crunch as well as a lemony flavor. And a beautiful way that you can do this is to take a citrus reamer. To take your chocolate, break it up in pieces, and gift it to someone that you love in a citrus reamer. Now, I happen to have a citrus reamer. This is my own, but you can get them for just a couple of dollars over at the Goodwill. I tried it out. I found plenty of reamers over there, and you can weigh your chocolate out. Remember, you've got 10 ounces of chocolate, and you've got 6 ounces of lemon candy. So you've got 16 ounces of candy here that you've just created. You want to put it all in one container or split it up between several. You might want to keep some yourself. So, but that's just one more thing that you can do. I would recommend getting, if you're interested, I would recommend getting one of the melting pots. I found it to be very, very versatile. But so that is, does anybody have any questions? I know I've gone through a whole lot of different things today.
All right. Well, Lisa, I have a question. First of all, I want to know, what is your favorite cookie to make around the holidays? What's your favorite cookie?
That's a good question. My favorite cookie that I make isn't necessarily the favorite of everybody else. My favorite cookie that I make, I've got a recipe for a tender sugar cookie. And when you bake cookies, it's like barbecue. Barbecue, they say you cook your barbecue low and slow and it gets very tender. Same thing with cookies. You cook your cookies at a lower temperature over a longer period of time, and it produces a softer cookie. If you want a hard, like a ginger snap, that's a high short bake. You want a soft cookie, a soft chewy cookie, it's a long slow bake. And I have got it's a tender sugar cookie recipe that I've adapted from actually a Better Homes and Gardens recipe that I think it's like 20 minutes in the oven for each.
Oh, wow.
Batch. It takes a long time, but the sugar just melts over the top and it coats it. So it's a nice, beautiful, crispy crunch on the outside and it's tender inside. It's not too much different than that crunch of sugar that you get from the Palmiers.
Lisa, how many cookies do you think you'll make around the holiday season?
Good question. I started baking because I do trays and I do trays and I send for gifts and things like that. I also bake and donate to a friend's restaurant for Thanksgiving. So I baked 350 snickerdoodles for them and prepackaged them all individually. But for my own baking, I've made 125 batches or 125 dozen already in the last 2 weeks. So, and I'm probably about half done. So I'll probably do 250. Between 2 and 250.
It's fantastic. Let's see. Well, we just had some nice comments that people really appreciated all these ideas. I know we took lots of very specific questions as we went along.
That's fine. If I'm going to go ahead on the handouts, actually, I've included my work email. So if you have reference questions or any questions about anything that you've seen here tonight, go ahead and feel free to email me. Email me for genealogy help as well, because I do that as well, but or history. But no, my contact information will be on the handouts that you'll receive. So feel free to ask any questions.
Terrific. And let's see. Oh, one person wants to know, how do you keep the cookies fresh tasting?
Oh, good question. I freeze my cookies. You don't freeze anything that's frosted, or you can freeze sugar cookies if they've got sprinkles and things like that on them. But I don't freeze anything that's frosted. So I'm making maple pecan cookies this year, and I'm making, so the maple pecan cookie is frozen, but I'll go ahead and thaw all that and I will ice all at once. So I have at least once a year I do something called the Great Cookie Thaw, where I'll take out and I'll mail all around the country to friends and relatives. So I have trays and trays and trays out thawing all at once, and then it's just one day of packaging and mailing.
Okay.
A big check to the post office. Yes.
All right. Well, anyhow, thank you so much for putting together this really creative and fun presentation for us. We really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone for joining us. We hope that you had a good time, that you're inspired to make some delicious gifts for your friends and family this holidays, or just make them for yourself.
Absolutely. You know, especially
Self-care.
After the year that we've had, you know, it's just something, even something that is simple, like putting together, not even, I wouldn't even call this homemade, call it home assembled, you know, but even something that you've done yourself will just bring you that much closer to your loved ones, friends.
So thank you for joining us, everyone. We said you'll get an email from me the next day with a link to the video and to the handouts. And we hope to see you again soon. You can see our programs. The easiest way to see what we're up to is by going to calendar.vapld.info. So thanks so much. Good night, everybody.
Thanks. Happy holidays.
Okay.